Good evening, everyone. My name is Gunjan, and I work as a registered migration agent with Aussies Group. Today, I'm live here to answer a lot of questions regarding the 485 visa inquiries and any other visa inquiry that you might have related to your current situation. But mainly, I'm going to be covering the 485 visa inquiries, the graduate stream, and the post-study work stream. I'll also be addressing the eligibility criteria related to the 485 visa, and I'll be addressing most of the common questions and scenarios that I experience when I consult my clients, and most of the questions that I get related to the clients. But feel free to ask any question. Even if it's not 485 or any training visa or 482, you can ask any questions, and I'll try to address those question and answers in the end of my session. I'll be sharing my screen so I can go through some of my slides. Yeah. Right. Okay, so again, everyone, my name is Gunjan. I work as a registered migration agent with Aussies Group in Melbourne City, Collins Street. And today I'll be discussing the temporary graduate 485 visa. I will also be discussing other requirements of the 485 visa, what are the eligibility criteria, and I'll be taking any questions related to migration in the end of the session or in between the session as well. So the temporary graduate visa, basically, it is a temporary visa that allows international students to live, study, and work after you have finished your studies. As an overview, 485 is a temporary visa. After you've completed your studies, you've received your completion letter, it will give you an opportunity to lodge a visa, depending on your course, once you finished your studies, to apply for the visa and work in Australia. While you're waiting for your 485 visa, or you're on a temporary graduate visa, you can explore your options to permanently reside in Australia or work. That is obviously up to the situation on case-by-case basis. I've got my contact details here, which I'll be leaving in the end as well. And then more than feel free to contact me for any questions. So 485 basically is divided into two streams. One is the graduate work stream, and second one is the post-study work stream. I'll be discussing both the streams separately, most of the common scenarios and the eligibility criteria. The difference between the graduate stream and the post-study work stream, I'll be focusing on mainly the difference because most common questions I have received from the clients is that which stream am I eligible for, or what are my eligibility criteria. So the graduate work stream 485 visa is an 18 months visa. That means that when you are granted this visa, it is 18 months from the date of grant. Why I picked this statement is because one question was being asked, that is my visa duration is from the date of lodgement or from the date of grant. Whenever you receive a visa grant letter, I always encourage the clients to read your visa grant letter because it has got certain visa conditions attached to it. What are those visa conditions? You need to be aware of it. And secondly, when you're granted the visa, it has got an expiry date. You must keep in mind your current visa expiry date. What are the visa conditions? So 485 is an 18 months visa. It is an opportunity to students who would like to extend their stay after their studies, after completion of their studies. It also helps those who are seeking to stay in Australia permanently, either through the General Skill Migration Program or Employer Nomination Scheme or any other eligible visa pathways. This visa is valid for 18 months from the date of grant. It has full working rights and full study rights. While you're on a 485, you are free to study, whether you want to study a trade course or keep other visa options open as well. This visa allows you to travel freely to and from Australia during the validity of your visa. Before your visa expiry, you can travel in and out of Australia. To lodge a 485, you must nominate an occupation on the skilled occupation list, which is the SOL list, in a medium and long-term strategic skill list. If your occupation, for example, enrolled nurse or cook, is in a short-term list, you are not eligible to apply for 485. Now, one of the most common requirements is the Australian study requirements. I'll be discussing a little bit this in detail because this is one of the main criteria for a 485 visa. And most of my clients who have come back to me regarding their, after the lodgement of, they have lodged themselves or through an outside source, a third party, there have been issues where they have not met the study requirements or they have misinterpreted what is on the website. The website gives you correct information. However, it is very easy to misinterpret what is written on the website. In the last 6 months, before you applied for this visa, you must have met the Australian study requirement. Now, this is at the time when you're applying for a 485 visa, you must have met the study requirement. You must have completed your studies in the last 6 months. For example, if you lodge your visa today in October, you must have completed your studies within the last 6 months, not in 2019 or 2020. You will meet this if you're awarded at least one degree, diploma, or a trade qualification. So to lodge a 485, you can either study a degree, diploma, or trade qualification and completed those studies. The course has to be CRICOS registered course, which most of the students are already aware of, that what is a CRICOS registered course. You have successfully completed all course requirements. Your study was in English, it shouldn't be in any other medium other than English. You have completed your course as a result of 2 academic years, which is 92 weeks of study. If it is less than 92 weeks of study, you may not be eligible to apply for 485 visa. And you were physically present in Australia for at least 16 calendar months to complete the study and held an Australian study visa that allowed you to study. There has been some concession due to the COVID concessions that I'll be discussing later as well. However, the basic eligibility is that you must be physically present in Australia for 16 calendar months to complete the Australian study requirements. Another aspect of Australian study requirement is that to meet the 2 academic year, which I was speaking before, to meet the 2 academic year component of the Australian study requirement, you may combine courses as well in some circumstances. So it is not necessary to just do one course. You can combine 2 or 3 courses. However, depending on the course, then we will be able to decide that which stream you will be applying for. When applying for this stream of subclass 485, the course must have resulted in a degree, diploma, or trade qualification. For example, a student may complete 2 consecutive diploma level courses and satisfy the Australian study requirement under the graduate work stream. Provided the other components of the requirements are also satisfied, you can combine 2 courses. One of the requirements for the 485 visa is skill assessment. Now, like we discussed, there are 2 streams for the 485 visa. One is the graduate work stream and one is the post-study stream. Skill assessment is a very important aspect of the 485 graduate stream. This is because of the reason that the students who have studied here, master's, bachelor's, or diploma, you must have a skill assessment, which is a provisional skill assessment in most of the situations. You will need to pass a skill assessment in your nominated occupation. This will depend on your occupation and generally be based on your qualification, English language eligibility, or any registration requirements based on which qualification you're studying. Many of the skill assessment authorities have lower requirements for 485 applicants. This includes accounting bodies like CPA. CPA is the accounting body, one of the accounting bodies for the skill assessment. Sorry, I just had some issues in the online session. Okay, we are back now. Yeah, so one of the accounting bodies would be CPA. So the accounting bodies like CPA, VETSS, and TRA, they have a provision called the provisional skill assessment. Now, the provisional skill assessment is a requirement that has to be met for the graduate stream work visa, which also means that you might not need work experience. For example, the people who have studied their IT degrees and who want to get the skill assessment, the provisional skill assessment, they can do it through the Australian Computing Society. The skill assessment must be lodged prior to the 485 application, not after. So once the 485 application is lodged, you even if you apply after the lodgement, your 485 may be refused, but not be completed at the time of lodgement. So you can provide your receipt number to the department. However, I do prefer at the time of lodgement, you do have a valid skill assessment. However, if you don't have enough time and your visa is expiring, you may provide with the receipt to the department that you have lodged a valid skill assessment and then lodge your 485 visa. It is important to ensure that you're able to meet the skill assessment requirements for your occupation. Otherwise, a visa application may be refused. I'll stay on the screen for a few minutes so that everybody can read about it as well. However, I can take some questions in between regarding the 485 visa or any other visa that you might have. Roshan is asking, do I need to apply for another student visa if I plan to change my university from bachelor's honors to bachelor in any course? So Roshan, thank you for your question. If you're currently holding the student visa, first, it is important to check that when is your visa expiring. If you're just changing from a bachelor's degree to a bachelor's degree, it also depends that how much course you have completed. Usually the course that you have been granted the visa for, recommended that you study the course because you've been granted the visa on that basis. However, even if still you want to change the course, you may be able to change the course without extending the visa. But at the same time, it depends when is your visa expiring and how much is your visa left. So you might need to, you can get in touch with me and I can have a chat about to you as well. All right, so now we can speak about the English language requirements. You will need to establish your English language ability when you lodge your 485 visa. So you can do that holding a passport from a UK, Ireland, one of the selected countries, or you need to have IELTS overall 6 of average and at least 5 in each band. OET B pass in each band, or PTE academic, which is one of the most common famous tests that the clients do. Overall average of 50 with a minimum of 36 in each band. TOEFL total score of 64 with at least 4 in listening and reading, for at least 14 in writing and speaking, or CAE 169 overall average with at least band of 154 in each band. Health insurance and police check, which is mandatory for you to be granted a visa. You will need to show that you have adequate health insurance when your 485 is granted. It's okay to have an overseas student health cover because when I'm doing the client's visas, it's the most common question asked is that I already hold a OSHC. Do I need to get another health insurance? Yes, you can hold. It's okay to have overseas health cover, student health cover, however, at the time of application. But for the visa approval, you will need to extend your cover because it's one of the conditions when you are granted a 485 visa, the condition is you must have health insurance during the period of your visa as well. You will need to maintain your working visa cover while you hold the 485. If you do not maintain this level of cover, your 485 visa can get affected because of the fact that it's one of the visa conditions. So do not take your visa conditions lightly. You would generally need to do your medicals for the grant of 485 visa. If you've recently applied for a student visa extension, you may be able to reuse those medicals within 12 months of medicals completed. Usually the medicals are valid for 12 months if you have not traveled in or out of the country. You will need Australian Federal Police check and your family members. If you're adding your wife or any child 16 or over, you might need to get the Australian Federal Police check for the dependents as well. You must apply for the AFP check prior to the lodgement of your 485 visa. If you have not applied for your 485, you've applied for 485 visa and not applied for your police check, that's not good. You need to apply for your police check. Just the receipt will do. Just the receipt number. You do not need to hold the police check before applying for the visa. I'll just take one or two more questions here. Does a PhD need skill assessment? I will get onto this post-study work stream. The answer is no, but you may not need a skill assessment because this is a post-study work stream. But I'll be talking about the post-study work stream after the slides as well. I've got one more question here. I'm on student bridging visa A, and my studies are completed. When can I apply my TR because my student visa is not granted yet? Atif, thanks for asking that question because that is one of the most common situations, and we do have a solution for it. Okay, so there are a couple of options here. I would like to know, when was your last student visa expired? So when did you last held your student visa? If this was more than 6 months ago, which I assume, then that's why you haven't lodged your 485, because you're not holding the student visa in the last 6 months. Then you need to wait for the visa granted. Now, the second situation is that, for example, with you or any other client, if you guys are going to complete your studies or have completed your studies and waiting for the student visa grant, I highly recommend to make a follow-up to the department and request for the visa grant so you can lodge your 485 and do not lose the opportunity of lodging the 485 visa. Or you can get in touch with me and I can act on your behalf and do a follow-up with the department. All right. Ravi is asking, hey Gunjan, my visa will expire on the 15th of March next year. I want to travel to India. So can I travel to India and file my 485 from India? I need to stay there still getting my visa. Ravi, there are some COVID concessions. However, there is a concession period. If for the students who are stuck outside, who cannot lodge their 485 onshore. So I would recommend that, just want to know the reason that why you do not want to lodge the 485 onshore in Australia. I would recommend you lodge your 485 onshore, and then you'll get a bridging visa A, or apply for a bridging visa B, and you to travel back. 485 may be granted outside Australia. I can discuss this your situation separately, individually. And guys, feel free to ask any question related to migration inquiries as well, and not just 485. I'm happy to answer the question. Okay. Now, I'll get onto this slide because there are a couple of questions related to the time limit and the bridging visas for the 485 visa. As I said, you must apply for your 485 visa within 6 months of completion of Australian studies. You must either hold a student visa when you apply for 485 or have held a student visa within the last 6 months. If for even a single extra day you lodge it and you have not held the visa in the last 6 months, your application will be refused. You must also make sure that you apply prior to the expiry of your student visa, or at least have applied another student visa and on a bridging visa A or B when 485 application is lodged. This is the similar situation to one of the clients that asked a question, Atif, that he's on a student visa and studies are completed. When can I be? Student visa is not yet granted. Atif, I would highly recommend, because your studies are completed. I've had similar case, so you can get in touch with me and I can discuss it so we can come to a solution, so you don't miss the opportunity of the 485 visa. Okay. When you apply for your 485 visa, you would in general receive a bridging visa A. So once the students apply for any valid visa, 485, you get a bridging visa A that allows you to remain in Australia legally during the processing of your 485 application. The bridging visa A has full work rights. If you held a substantive visa, for example, student visa, so any visa which is not a bridging visa is a substantive visa. When you apply for your 485, the work rights on the bridging visa will come into effect when the substantive visa expires. The bridging visa will cease if you depart Australia. So if on a bridging visa A, if you leave Australia, you cannot come back. So if you want to come back, and you must apply for a bridging visa B to facilitate your travel back to Australia. I'll just take one or two more questions now. Udesh is asking, my student visa expires next year. I have completed my master's in business information system in September. How long can I wait to apply for 485 visa? So you must lodge your 485 within 6 months of your completion letter, the date on your completion letter. So your transcript and your completion letter, Udesh, will have an exact DDMMYY with the date, month, and year, the completion date. And you can lodge within 6 months of that. However, I do recommend not to leave things at the last moment. All right. Post-study work stream visa. So now first one was the graduate stream visa, and the second one is a post-study work stream visa, which is basically for people who are studying a degree. The post-study is a 485, which is commonly known as PSW. It's a work visa lasting for 2 to 4 years, depending on the course that you've studied for. I'll take questions in the end of the presentation, so you guys can stick around, and I'll finish my presentation first. So most of the questions can be answered during the presentation, and so yeah. Students need to complete their studies either bachelor's, master's, or doctorate level, which at least with 2 academic years. Like I said, the requirement of 2 years study requirement is 2 academic years. It is a great option for students who would like to extend their stay in Australia after their studies. It also helps who are seeking to stay in Australia permanently, either through the skill migration or employer nomination. There is no occupation list for the post-study work visa. The area of specialization is not relevant, providing your studies are at the right level. Skill assessments is not required for the post-study work visa. So anybody, for example, with bachelor's, master's, PhD, you do not need a skill assessment. I've had clients who have applied for skill assessment for 485 post-study work stream, which is not a requirement. This visa also have full work rights, study rights, allows you to travel to and from Australia during the validity of the visa. So once your 485 visa is granted, as I said before, always read your visa conditions. And if you're not sure, consult a migration agent for that. Okay. The validity of the post-study work stream. For PhD, you get 4 years visa. Master by research, you get 3 years visa. Master's by coursework, bachelor's degree, 2 years visa. And 1 extra year if you've studied in a regional area. Now, this is just a little bit of exemption, which is not the situation very common right now, because this is for people who applied and were granted your first student visa before 5th of November 2011. So if you have held a student visa which you applied prior to 5th November 2011, then you're not eligible for post-study work stream. This would include a situation where you have studied and returned to your home country. And even if you hold a visa which you did apply, you will still be ineligible if you've held a student visa which you applied. So if anybody basically who applied the visa before this date, 5th November 2011, you will not be eligible for the post-study work stream, maybe for the graduate stream, but not for the post-study work stream. All right, the study requirements are for the 485 post studies that you must have completed a course which at least 2 academic years. Only studies at the bachelor's, master's, or doctorate level count towards the 2-year study requirement for the post-study work stream. The studies must be CRICOS registered, and the total registered study period must be 92 weeks. If you have exemptions for students, sometimes they have done some overseas studies, and they get exemptions due to the overseas subjects. So when you calculate the 92 weeks requirement, that might count against you or in the 2-year study requirement. You can count more than 1-year course, providing each course met the requirements with the 2 academic years. So the key part is the 2 academic years of study. You can have a break in studies in between. However, it should be as per your visa conditions. Now, this slide is basically most common mistakes that the clients do when they're lodging their 485. And these are the main questions that I asked for in my consultation. So that's why I've covered these 4 questions. I've had clients selecting the wrong stream while applying for 485, which is a really, really big risk, because there are decisions when your visa application is refused. the decision goes to the tribunal, the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. And you need to make sure that when you're lodging an AAT, you need to have grounds to argue the case as well. If there are no grounds there are few grounds that you can't really, the law cannot be changed by the AAT unless you have very strong grounds to argue. So if you have selected the wrong stream, for example, if instead of the post-study work stream, if you select the graduate stream, application will highly likely to be refused, and you might not be able to win at AAT as well. Did not have required English requirements met. Some clients have lodged their 485 visa where they haven't met the English requirements. So that is something that is critical, and application might be refused. Some clients have applied with the wrong skill assessment, the nominated occupation. So you need to make sure that if your 485 visa requires a skill assessment, you must have the right nominated occupation. Applied after 6 months of completion of the course. One, the application might not proceed. Second, if it's proceed, it's highly likely to be refused if you're trying to apply after 6 months of the completion of the course. One of the main questions I asked for that they didn't complete the required 2-year study requirement. Some clients, they have studied less than 2 academic years, and if they have lodged their 485, it's highly likely to be refused. Okay, so this is like one of the, I'll stay on this slide for some time because one of the main reasons why I picked up the 485 visa is that one is a requirement. Second, while you're waiting for the 485 visa to be granted or the visa decision to be taken, what are the options you can explore while being on a bridging visa A? Because it's best to utilize the time while the 485 visa is in process if you're on a bridging visa A. So there are some of the options or the roadmap, what you can explore during, and best to consult a registered migration agent to discuss your visa pathways. Because if your 485 visa has been granted and it's closer to the visa expiry, you might not have enough time to explore the PR options, the permanent residency options. So one of the visas that I have been doing lately a lot more for the people who have been on a 485, you try to accumulate as much experience in your nominated occupation. Once you have accumulated enough work experience in your nominated occupation, there are some visas that you can explore. That's one of them is a training visa, the 407. This is also an employer-sponsored visa similar to 482 or 186. The difference is that for the training visa, the company is basically sponsoring you to train you and upskill you in your area of your nominated occupation. So unlike 482, 407 is for the training and not for the skilled people. Though you do need 12 months of work experience in the last 24 months, or you should have completed a 12-month study in the last 24 months. However, keep in mind that the 407 visa can only be applied on a bridging visa A within 28 days of your last substantive visa. If you have lodged your 485 incorrectly and you are basically awaiting for a refusal, then it is good to plan as a backup, either a training visa or a 482 visa or a 186 or 19491, depending on your situation. 407 is one of the training visas that you can explore. 482 is a skilled visa. Basically, this probably would be a very lengthy discussion if I go in detail about the 482 visa. However, 482 visa is for people with minimum 2 years of work experience and whose employers are willing to sponsor them. The 482 can be lodged in 3 streams: the short-term stream, medium-term stream, and the labor agreement stream. Now, in the short-term stream, if you have an employer to sponsor you, you can only lodge a visa for 2 years, the 482, plus another 2 years. It's got 3 steps to it. First, your company has to be approved as a sponsor. So the sponsorship, and the second stage is the nomination, and then the visa. So if you have minimum 2 years experience, if you're working in a company, you can try to accumulate as much experience on a bridging visa A of your 485 or any other visa. Then eventually you can lodge a 482 on a bridging visa A. You don't need to hold a substantive visa. You can lodge a 482 on a bridging visa A. Now, 186 is a permanent residency. anybody with 3 years of experience, you have a company to sponsor you. Your occupation has to be in the medium term list. You go ahead with the 186 visa, which is a straight PR. You can work and live in Australia with a permanent resident work visa. This visa requires the applicant to complete a skill assessment, be nominated by an approved Australian employer. So you must have a skill assessment for 186 visa. For 482, there are some occupations who do not need skill assessment. However, for 186, the skill assessment is a must. The 186 does not require, it doesn't involve sponsorship. It involves visa, nomination and visa. 190 is a permanent residency. That's a state nomination PR. While, like I mentioned, you're waiting on a 485 or on a bridging visa. I have some of the clients who already hold a skill assessment. For example, could be for accountant, could be for IT. IT could be based on your overseas degree. For clients over here who have studied their Australian qualification in IT, they either need to do a professional year program or they need to have 1 year experience. But there are some clients who hold a bachelor's degree overseas and they have work experience. So the skill assessment can be done on the basis of overseas degree. So that could be an opportunity to explore. When I talk about overseas qualification, I have a lot of clients where they would have been eligible a long time ago with their overseas degree, had it been engineering. There are a lot of engineers, IT, accountants. So use your overseas degree to get your skill assessment while you're in Australia waiting for a visa decision. 491 is a state nomination. It's a 5 years provisional visa where that allows you to live and work in Australia. And you can apply for your PR after 3 years of working and living in a designated area. Now, this is just like a summary of the visas that you can explore while on a bridging visa A. Or other options are if you get married to an Australian citizen or resident and the person is an eligible sponsor, you can go for the partner visa. Yeah, so there could be other options as well. I'll take some questions before I end my presentation related to the 485 and the migration pathways. All right. Completed my master's. Okay, so Mudessir is asking, I'm on 80 points, accounting general stream 1. So I'm pretty sure that, are you asking about the New South Wales? Because like the New South Wales 491 has got regional nomination options. So 491 stream 1, stream 2, stream 3. So you can discuss your options in detail with me and then we can look for options. If you're living and working in regional area in Victoria, you may try for the Victoria 491, but you should be using your STEM skills in one of the target sectors of Victoria. So we can assess your situation separately. You can get in touch with me with these contact details. How much time does it take to get 485 subsequent visa? The processing time after the COVID has been quite varying. Initially, when there's pre-COVID world, when it didn't exist, it was probably a couple of months. 4 to 5 months, and it could be the same duration. Now, make sure you lodge a decision-ready application and all the requirements are met. That sometimes helps as well. Sushant is asking, do the temporary visa holder need an exemption to travel overseas and come back after get the vaccine passport? I can only advise you regarding the visa requirements and what your visa conditions are. Depends what kind of temporary visa holder you are. You can travel, but in order to come back, you'll have to get a valid visa to come back. So I would recommend that you check from the authorities that where you want to travel overseas. So which country are you looking to travel? So not to set any wrong expectations, I would recommend that you consult the country's authorities where you're planning to travel. I've got another question here. I applied for 485 in March in Australia and I didn't submit medical. They've asked, and due to COVID, I didn't get my medical date. So is there any problem? So that's not a big issue because the department is aware that the medicals were not being done during the COVID restrictions. So they are aware of it. However, I would recommend that you keep the department updated and just shoot them an email and respond to them. But however, the clients that are getting medical requests, I have noticed that the department is giving like a 2 to 3 months deadline. So you check your due date, when is your medicals due, like the request for information that you have received from the department, when is the due date. So keep that in mind. And then I think they are trying to open some centers for the medical and the English tests as well. So you can get in touch and try to book your date as soon as possible. And if you would like to consult regarding your migration pathways, you can get in touch with me. Gursharan is asking, I have completed my master's of business information system, so I need to skill assessment or not? So no, for the post-study work stream, if you are lodging a 485 post-study based on your bachelor's or master's, and you have met the 2-year study requirement, you do not need a skill assessment. However, for your migration pathway, for 190 or 186 or any migration pathway, I would recommend that you get your skill assessment. If you have done your Masters of Information System, you can get the skill assessment either through professional year program or 1 year of work experience. However, let's see if you have done your bachelor's as well. We can try to use your bachelor's and get the skill assessment if you've got work experience for minimum 2 years in your nominated occupation. So we can plan a migration pathway for your future if you want to have a consultation. If I was a dependent of my husband for a 485 graduate work stream and now I study a bachelor's, can I get the extra year or 2 years? So you can apply for your post-study work stream. Yeah, you can only apply for your post-study or a 485 once in your lifetime. So if you have been on a 485 dependent, you can apply for you may be eligible to apply for your 485 as a main applicant. But if you can get in touch with me, I can discuss this in detail because there are a lot of other requirements to be met for that visa. Anne is asking that for the 1 year full-time experience for chef, to get a skill assessment, is it after your study finishes, even if your work experience will count before? 1 year full-time work experience to chef for skill assessment. So, and it depends, are you talking about the qualification, the RPL, or you're talking about the skill assessment with the certificate 4 in Australia? So the skill assessment for chef has got different pathways, depends on your country of passport, depends on your pathway 1, pathway 2, whether you have studied in Australia or are you talking about overseas qualification. And 12 months work experience in the last 3 years for one of the pathways. So we can assess your situation if you want to get in touch with me regarding your chef pathway, because Victoria 190 also introduced the workforce skill pathway for cook and chef. So if you're working as a chef in Victoria, we can check whether you're eligible for the Victoria 190 pathway as well. Plus other options for chef, because it's in the medium term list. You can try for the 482 employer nomination scheme 186 and training visa, depending on when is your visa expiring, you can lodge your 485 as well. Robin is asking, do we need to do work assessment to get 5 points towards the peer, or is automatically updated? Well, nothing gets automatically updated, but depends what are you asking about the employment assessment. If you want to claim points for your employment, you need to put in the right information in your expression of interest and select the right information there. Need to make sure that your tasks are highly relevant related to the employment assessment. So make sure that you're putting the right information, because once you get invited, you need to have consistent information. So if you are claiming 5 points for your 1 year work experience, you need to make sure that you have the relevant documents to satisfy the requirements. You can always update the EOI. So don't assume that it can get automatically updated. So if you want, you can get in touch with me, and then we can have a consultation regarding your migration inquiry. I've got one more question here. I'm on a 482 9, completing 2 years this year in November, went to India. Can I apply on the 15th? Wait, so I'm sure you're talking about the 887 visa. You may be eligible to apply for the COVID concession for the 9-month employment. 2 years after went to India. Okay, I will need to check that for you. If you can email me your inquiry and your details, we can have a chat separately about that. Tanveer is asking, is there any requirement for relevant work experience for 407 training visa currently employed in IT? So, for example, Tanveer, if you hold a degree, first of all, you need to have a relevant qualification if you want to be sponsored. So let's say that you have an employer working as a developer programmer, and you hold a degree in Bachelor's of Information System Programming. So with your work experience, either that degree of 12 months should have been completed in the last 24 months, or you should have work experience. So when you say relevant work experience, you do not need to be titled as a developer programmer. This is just an example. You could be maybe as a graduate developer, and your task would be relevant. Not that you are working as an accountant and you want to be sponsored as a developer programmer. So when you say relevant, yes, you need to have a relevant work experience, but not highly relevant tasks is not mandatory. So I would still recommend you consult a registered agent if you are planning to lodge a training visa. Training visas is a really good pathway to build your work experience. The processing time is a bit longer as well, so you might make use of that time to work full time during that period. Any clue Queensland is opening for? Also, my 485 application processing time just changed from 8. The processing time can vary a lot since the COVID thing has started. The processing time has not been fixed for any visa. So there are people who have been waiting for almost like 9 to 12 months for the 485 visa. There have been people who have been granted 485 in days, and which they didn't really want it to, but it is what it is. You can't really do much about it. But make sure that most important thing is that the requirements are met. Make sure that you've lodged a valid application and all the 2-year study requirements is met for the 485 visa. I don't have any other questions yet. However, after the session, if anybody wants to have questions, you can feel free to email me on my email address or text me on my phone number, and I'm happy to book in a consultation. Lizzie is also asking that when Queensland is opening for 491-190 options, so we can keep a track for it. You can keep an eye on our Facebook page. We are very much proactive in updating details on our website of any state requirements changes or the invitations come. So last we had this big invitation round for the Victoria 190. So we have updated the data, is collated some data and updated on which sector we had most of the invitations. So you can keep an eye on our Facebook page and just like our page so you get updates as well. I'll check if I have any other question, or I will end this session. Like I said, guys, keep your options open and please consult a registered migration agent to discuss your visa pathways. And if you have an employer, always speak to your employer regarding the options of nominating you in your nominated occupation. If you have an overseas degree, please check if you can get assessed your overseas degree while you're doing a professional year program. I would also recommend to enroll in the professional year program because one, it gives you extra 5 points, which makes a lot of difference in your the total point score. For example, if someone has 90 points and they're doing a professional year jumps up to 95 points, it makes a lot of difference. You can try get PTE coaching and then try for superior English to maximize your point score. New South Wales also is good in inviting candidates. Victoria, South Australia, keep your state nominations options open by discussing your pathways with an agent. And that just helps you to build your pathway for future. COVID visa 408 is also one of the options you can go for if you're working in one of the essential sectors like hospitality, tourism, agriculture, aged care, or chef or cook. So you can try for the 408 COVID visa. You will be granted minimum, you may be granted 12 months visa. There are a lot of questions that come up that after COVID visa, I won't be able to lodge any other visa, which might not be true. Look, the case officer may have the right to apply a no further stay condition. However, yet I haven't seen a COVID visa granted with no further stay condition yet. There may be chances, hypothetically, for example, if someone has been in Australia on a student visa for like 12 years, 13 years, where they address their GTE, genuine temporary entrant, and the case officer thinks that because the COVID visa is also a temporary visa, in the COVID visa, you also need to address a genuine temporary entrant that you'll be going back to your country after working here in the critical essential sector. And COVID visa, we don't know how long it's going to be there for. So don't rely on that option. Only explore other visa options as well. And is asking, is it the same with cook, chef, relevant work experience? So you can work in a cafe as a cook there to give your skill assessment before applying for 485. So, and I'm not sure what your question is related to the skill assessment. So like I said that I would need to know that what is your qualification? Do you hold a Cert 3 or a Cert 4? So Cert 4, you can be assessed as a chef. The 12 months work experience, I think you may be talking about the Job Ready program. So what happens is with the chef or a cook, you need to first apply for your provisional skill assessment after completing 360 hours of paid work experience. Once you've applied or received your provisional skill assessment and you have completed your 2-year study requirement, you can lodge your 485 graduate visa. When you're on a bridging visa A of a graduate visa, you do your Job Ready program for 1 year as a cook or a chef. When you complete your Job Ready program through TRA, the Trade Recognition of Australia, which is the assessing authority of trade occupations, you get your full skill assessment. After getting the full skill assessment, then you explore your visa options. For training visa, you do not need skill assessment. Yeah. Is there a deal in processing 485 post-study work stream? So Pratik, there is no fixed time frame for the processing. There have been cases where it has been granted in a couple of weeks, but there are some people who have been waiting for a while for the 485 decision from the department. All right. So I will end this session here, and I'm happy to have a one-to-one catch-up and a consultation via Zoom or a phone consultation till we go back to work. And feel free to call us or email us for visa consultation. And take care, everyone. Thank you for your time and listening to me and asking questions. I'm more than happy to answer questions after this session as well, but please email or call or message for the questions. Thank you so much. Take care.